Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basingstoke is a great town. We have an amazing borough, but we need to recognise that for many people in our town and borough, getting by and making ends meet isn't easy. It is not easy to afford to live in Basingstoke. It's not easy to afford to find a home in our town, and it's difficult to travel around our town. House prices and rents are amongst the highest in the southeast. Many of those who work in the town are struggling with costs of living here. Many thousands of people who work rely on benefits to make ends meet. Many are trapped in zero-hour contracts or part-time work. It doesn't help to enable them to pay their bills, their rent or a mortgage. Those who manage to find somewhere to live in Basingstoke often find themselves at the mercy of letting agents, insecure tenancies and extortionate rents. A few nights ago, I walked
The question really begs, who are you running this council for? Who are you really running this council for? And I think a lot of the speeches on the other side give that away. We have a very different vision. Doesn't mean we're right and you're wrong. It means we have different views and different priorities. That's clear in what you said. It's clear in what we've said. What we're saying is that we want to tackle the housing agenda in this borough. We want to tackle the issues of public transport. Yes, we do want to tackle the green agenda because we do see it, like you do, as being important. But it takes vision, it takes being bold, and it takes doing a lot more than is in this budget. It begs the questions about the investments and the way that the money of this council is actually being handled. We are great at lending other councils our money for them to go and build council houses and affordable housing and invest in their services. We've cut services year on year. That's a fact. Your outsourcing and your commissioning is costing this council significant money when it should be investing that money in delivering high quality public services. And I just hate this debate about public good and private bad that we've had in committee after committee of the commissioning. Because the actual truth of the matter is that the public sector in Basingstoke, in many ways, is married to the private sector. And you need a healthy private and public sector living and working off of each other if you are truly going to have economic success. And just saying profit is this and you're bad and you don't understand business is rubbish. Of course we get business, and of course we understand how we need to invest this council's money safely, appropriately, to create a return. That's just childish politics. What we're debating here is how you should do that. We believe that building homes to create a rate of return is the right thing to do. We believe investing in small businesses to create a return for that is the right thing to do. We believe investing in apprenticeships and so on is the right thing to do.
I mean, 51 years ago, this May, I moved to Basingstoke. It's a 13-year-old. My good old mate here, Councillor Tony Jones, did the same. Stag Hill, Cleaver Road, Southend boys, and I'm still there, but he deserted. But there were council houses, massive council houses. We had rows and rows and rows of them, to quote the leader. And you know, people loved them. Well, they did love them. Do you know what they did in the end? They bought them. They loved them so much. Yeah, I should tell my neighbours now. All of them have lived there for 50 years. I mean, I'm the right to buy. I respect what you're going to say. But it's, I should tell my neighbours that, you know, the Tories don't want your children, your grandchildren, to have houses that they can afford. Because over the last 30 years of neoliberalism, privatisation, it's been an insidious shift from state or council-run houses to private rented. There's no consequences. The rents have shot through the roof, and so have house prices. So we're now, especially here in the southeast of England, we're being totally priced out. And generation rent, not generation rent, it's generation staying with mum and dad.
At the same time, the Cabinet fined an extra £30,000 for parish council litter picking. Something just doesn't add up. Something seems quite wrong. Which fees and charges do the Tories look to increase the most? It's those like the bulky waste collection charge. If you have an old sofa you need taken away, it will cost you £21. But if you approve this budget tonight, the price will rise to £25. Fly tipping is on the increase. Increasing collection charges way above inflation show how Tories really do not care about the issues on our estates, or don't understand them. They just don't understand them. While the Tories freeze council tax, local people in Basingstoke are facing additional £250,000 in fees and charges. The government
And that, funny enough, is where I want to focus my contribution to tonight's budget, specifically on domestic refuse and recycling collection. We have a new policy now. It's 3 strikes and you're out. Now, whilst I feel that bullies residents, what does it actually do to the budget? You can see for yourselves. Refuse collection budget up, fly tipping budget up, recycling budget down. That kind of proves the point that the administration doesn't take recycling seriously. And if you want further proof, Appendix 5 of the budget shows that it was £113,000 underspend in recycling and refuse collection budget. And I don't think that we have properly looked at how we can use that underspend to work that back into the recycling budget. It's something that we should do, and this budget doesn't.
One of the problems that we're missing out here, and I think we're afraid. I think we're afraid to look at it. Indexes of multiple deprivation are the highest in Hampshire in Basingstoke. Education, skills and training deprivation domain, also one of the highest levels in Basingstoke. Health deprivation in Buckskin, one of the highest in the county. And children and young people deprivation subdomain, again, in Basingstoke, 20% most deprived. We are not addressing the issue of the socially deprived in this town, and we are allowing the gap to get bigger. You put a £112,500 reduction in the homelessness budget, with no real plans to build houses. Homelessness is rising, funding reducing. And that's, I think, why the suggestion of a £25 million expenditure came up, because we couldn't see where new houses were going to come from. And we know that we've got 3,000 people on the waiting list. We're not enabling the elderly to downsize where they want to. We're not enabling young people into housing at a realistic price. £750,000 for youth, invest to work. We would like to see the focus for young people who have been affected by benefit changes. Invest to support small businesses, again, getting people back into work. And that, I accept, we've got a brilliant record.
Government and this borough are keeping private landlords afloat with housing benefit. Complaints against private landlords has increased by 190%. Injunctions and court orders against landlords have increased by 178%. Yet this Tory administration continues to oppose our request for a mandatory register of landlords. The problems of our urban communities are facing from poorly managed, privately rented housing are growing. The number of empty homes is up nearly 18% on last year. we have over 100 homes that have been empty longer than 2 years. We have seen a 464% increase in the number of the number of homeless households placed in bed and breakfast. Overall, we have seen the cost of bed and breakfast increase 973% in 4 years. We are spending over £120,000 a year on bed and breakfast. A lot of talk has taken place in this chamber housing vulnerable people. Many older people in supported housing in our borough have seen their alarm systems cut, unless they can afford to pay for it themselves. The handy person service is gone. The gardening service is gone. To make matters worse, many older people would like to downsize out of the homes they cannot afford to heat, but are trapped because we don't have smaller homes for them to move into. County are now reviewing the housing and support for people with mental health and learning disabilities. I despair to think of the outcome of these reviews. Older people tell us how they feel trapped, isolated, because of the changes to the cuts in buses. Not everyone drives, and buses connect people to vital services, the hospital, GPs, and also just to get out and buy some shopping. A 90-year-old woman in Southam is fighting to keep a very limited bus service. She is only able to get into town now once a week. She has to go in the morning and has a few hours before she has to leave and come home. And that's her only time that she's able to spend outside of the house. This is someone who lives in Southam. It's not a village. This is in the heart of our town. The Labour group continues to fight for better bus services. Another example is an older woman I met in Winklebury who told me that she has to take 2 journeys on the bus to get to see her GP, who is in Popley. That is, of course, when the buses run, and they only run every hour and a half. Basingstoke's appalling public transport system is a major issue. So it beggars belief that in this budget, the Cabinet is increasing our shuttle bus fares by 10%, and in some cases 17%.